I never thought a man could erase months of my work and my dignity in under 30 seconds. But that's exactly what my boss did the morning everything snapped. If you've ever stood in the middle of an office and felt every pair of eyes climb your spine while someone with more power than sense tore you apart, you'll understand the kind of silence I'm talking about. The kind that doesn't just hang in the air, it crushes it. It started 5 minutes before our weekly stand-up. I'd spent the entire weekend fixing the financial summary he demanded Friday night. The one he insisted had to be flawless by Monday. No excuses. I didn't sleep more than 4 hours. My eyes still burned from staring at spreadsheets. But when he walked in, coffee in hand, smile sharp enough to cut glass, I actually felt relieved. I thought he'd at least glance at the first page before criticizing it. That was my first mistake. He didn't look. He didn't check. He didn't even greet me. He just marched across the floor, grabbed the folder from my desk like he was ripping a bandage off someone else's wound, and said, loud enough for the entire office to hear, "Is this supposed to be your best work, Michael?" I swear, the room froze. People looked down at their keyboards. Someone coughed because they didn't know what else to do. I tried to answer, but he stepped closer, flipping through pages at random, tearing one slightly at the corner. "This is incomplete," he snapped. "This section isn't aligned. This graph... Jesus, do you even understand the assignment?" The worst part wasn't the volume. It was how calm he sounded. Like humiliating me was just another bullet point on his Monday to-do list. "I followed your notes," I said quietly. "Everything you asked for is there." He laughed. Actually laughed. "So now you're telling me I'm wrong?" My throat closed. I wasn't telling him anything. There was no right answer, only the one that kept him entertained the longest. Then he did something I still feel in my chest. He tossed the whole report onto my keyboard, pages scattering like someone had smashed a bird against the desk. "Fix it," he said, this time without embarrassing the department. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the printers seemed to pause mid-spool. I could feel heat rising in my face, but not anger. Shame. Shame I hadn't earned. Shame I didn't deserve. Shame handed to me like a punishment for existing. He turned, ready to walk away, but not before adding, softer, almost conversational, "If you can't handle stairs without falling, maybe complex tasks aren't for you." It didn't make sense at first. Stairs? I hadn't fallen. I hadn't even been near the stairwell that morning. But before I could process it, he disappeared into the conference room, and people started pretending to be busy again. I gathered the pages in silence. Some were crumpled where his fingers had dug in. I smoothed them out, not because I intended to fix anything, but because doing something, anything, kept my hands from shaking. Around noon, HR called me in. The HR manager, a woman who always smelled like lemon disinfectant, pushed a form across the table. "We just need a quick statement from you," she said in that artificially soft tone people use, right before they hand you bad news. "Regarding your fall this morning." "My what?" "Your fall on the stairs," she repeated. "Your manager reported that you slipped and were disoriented afterward. He was concerned about your well-being." My stomach dropped. So that's why he said it. He was building the lie before I even knew there was a story. "I didn't fall," I said slowly. "I haven't been on the stairs today." She clicked her pen twice, a nervous habit she had when she knew she was part of something wrong. "Well, he already documented it. It's probably best if you just confirm the basics so we can close the incident." Confirm the basics. Lie for him. Protect him. Erase myself. I sat there staring at the form. "Did he say I missed the meeting because of this fall?" I asked. Her silence was the answer. It hit me then. The humiliation, the blame, the altered record, the way he'd kneaded reality like clay to fit whatever narrative benefited him. And I realized this wasn't a bad morning. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a strategy. One he'd used on others. One he'd perfected. One he'd decided to use on me. Walking out of HR, the office suddenly felt smaller, like the walls had learned how to listen, like every light above me was watching, waiting to see if I'd fold the way he expected. But here's the part he didn't see coming. I broke that day, but not in the way he wanted. I didn't crumble. I didn't retreat. Something inside me clicked, snapped into place with the precision of a lock turning. This wasn't going to be another incident he buried. This time, I would be the one watching him. People think the worst part of being humiliated is the moment it happens. The sting, the heat, the eyes on your back. They're wrong. The worst part is the hour after, when everything goes quiet and you're left alone with the aftertaste of it. The humiliation settles in like dust after a collapse. It coats your thoughts. It clings to your clothes. It follows you into the elevator, into the break room, into the space behind your ribs where anger slowly, steadily begins to harden. That afternoon, something in my routine snapped. I didn't go to lunch. I didn't even pretend to rework the report he'd shredded in front of 30 people. Instead, I opened my email archive, all of it, and typed his name into the search bar. Not because I had a plan, just because I wanted to remind myself I wasn't crazy, that this wasn't an accident or a misunderstanding, that I didn't imagine the months of tension tightening around me like wire. The search results filled the screen. Deadlines moved without notice. Assignments changed 3 times in the same day. Instructions contradicted the previous ones. Late-night messages demanding answers within the hour. Comments implying mistakes I didn't make. Notes blaming me for work he never let me finish. Things he forgot to mention in meetings, then punished me for not knowing. Seeing them all at once felt like the floor tilting under me. This wasn't one incident. This was a pattern, and it didn't start today. I scrolled through weeks, then months. There were emails where he praised my work, privately, then messages to upper management where he rephrased my work as his. I found a thread where he assigned me a task, then forwarded it to someone else, and CC'd me with the subject line, "Fix Michael's error." I sat back in my chair and exhaled slowly. Everyone had said he was difficult, demanding, high pressure, but I'd believed if I kept my head down, stayed quiet, did my job well enough, eventually he'd stop noticing me. But today made something painfully clear. Men like him don't stop when you shrink. They stop when you stand up. The office buzzed around me, keyboards clicking, phones ringing, but I wasn't part of it anymore. I was observing it from the outside, seeing, maybe for the first time, how many people were quietly afraid of the man who held their paychecks like a leash. Around 3, I overheard him through the thin conference room wall. His voice carried, it always did when he wanted a performance. "Look, I did what I could. He's been unreliable for months. Today was just the final straw. I won't have him compromising the team." A pause. Of course I made the report. HR can't ignore behavior like that. It took everything in me not to walk in there, not to slam the folder of printed emails onto the table and demand he show a single piece of evidence of this so-called pattern. But I knew better. Anger in the moment would only give him another angle to label me unstable, unprofessional, or his favorite, overwhelmed. No. If I pushed back now, I'd walk straight into the story he'd already built. I needed something else, something he didn't see coming. So I went home early, not because I was defeated, but because I needed silence to think. The sunlight hit my apartment differently that day, sharper, colder. I sat on the couch with my laptop open, replaying the 3 seconds it took him to rip up my work. 3 seconds that told me everything I needed to know. For months, I'd explained away every red flag. He's stressed. He's strict. He expects excellence. He's hard on everyone. But the truth finally landed with the dull, heavy finality of a falling brick. He wasn't strict. He wasn't stressed. He wasn't hard on everyone. He was targeting me. It wasn't paranoia. It was pattern. And the more I looked, the more obvious it became. At some point, Frustration turned into clarity. I opened a new document and began compiling everything: dates, emails, instructions he contradicted, tasks he assigned twice, times he changed deadlines without notice, the project where he erased my name from the final presentation, the day he blamed me for a budget error he'd made and quietly corrected after the meeting. Then I added today: the public humiliation, the fabricated fall, the HR memo, his voice through the conference room wall. The file grew. 10 pages, 15, 23. By the time the outline was complete, one thing was obvious. If I kept going, this wouldn't just save my job. It would destroy his. And then something unexpected happened. While digging through his old messages, I found a folder he'd mislabeled. It wasn't hidden, just tucked between travel receipts and vendor invoices. A mistake, the kind made by people. Corporate investigations don't start with sirens and handcuffs. They start with an email that looks boring on purpose. Mine went out at 8:12 a.m. the next morning. Subject line: request for confidential compliance review. Recipients: internal audit and compliance. Not HR, not my boss, not anyone in our chain. Inside, I kept it clean. No emotions, no adjectives, no "this isn't fair." Just dates, attachments, and a line at the end. I believe these items may indicate serious policy violations and possible misrepresentation of financial data by my direct manager. I am available to provide additional context upon request. I reread it twice. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't pound. It felt less like revenge and more like taking out the trash. Then I hit send. 5 minutes later, I heard his voice coming down the aisle, bright and performative. "Morning, team. Let's try to make today less dramatic than yesterday, shall we?" A couple of people chuckled. A couple didn't. He stopped at my desk, hand on the edge of it like he owned the wood. "Michael," he said, "I trust you've fixed your report and gotten some rest after your little incident." I looked up at him, really looked, and realized something. Once you've seen what a person does in the dark corners of the system, it's very hard to be afraid of their volume. "I've documented everything," I said quietly. He frowned, thrown off by the answer. "Everything? What?" "Instructions, deadlines, changes, your report to HR, your comments. It's all recorded now." For the first time since I'd known him, he blinked without speaking. "Just make sure you hit your numbers," he said finally, voice tightening, and walked away. 2 hours later, I got the reply I'd been waiting for. Internal audit. "Thank you for bringing this to our attention. We'd like to schedule a confidential meeting today. Please do not discuss this matter with others until we've had a chance to review." I almost laughed. Everyone already knew something was wrong. They just didn't know the shape of it yet. The meeting was in a small windowless room on the 14th floor, the kind they use for interviews and quiet firings. 2 people were waiting for me when I walked in. A woman from compliance with a steady gaze and a man from audit who didn't bother with polite small talk. "Michael," she said, "we've reviewed the documents you sent. We need you to walk us through how you found them and the context. This conversation is confidential." So I did. I laid out the pattern, the moving goals, the contradictory instructions, the way he used HR to build a paper trail that never matched reality. I showed them the thread where he blamed me for missing data in a report he'd edited himself. Then I opened the folder of invoices. They leaned forward. The room got very still. "These payments," the auditor said, tapping the screen. "You're sure they're not tied to a project you worked on?" "I'm sure," I said. "Those vendor names have never appeared in any schedule I've handled, but his authorization is on all of them. And you have access to this because—" "Shared department drive," I answered. "He's careless with permissions." They asked more questions. I answered all of them. Dates, times, who was in the room, what was said. Every moment I'd swallowed came back out in straight lines and bullet points. At the end, the woman from compliance closed her notebook, slowly, "Michael," she said, "I want to be clear about something. Retaliation is a serious violation here. If anything changes in your work environment after today, tone, assignments, threats, you come directly to us. Understood?" That was the first time anyone in that building had said anything that sounded remotely like protection. "I understand," I said. When I walked back onto our floor, the atmosphere felt wrong. The easy noise was gone. People's eyes flicked from their screens to the conference rooms and back again. HR had been in and out. 2 senior managers had passed through without saying hello, which never happened. He was in his office with the door closed. That never happened either. Around 3, he emerged, face tight, smile gone. He called 2 people in, one after the other. No one met my eyes. No one had to. The air already knew my name. He didn't call me. Not that day. Instead, an email went out company-wide right before close of business. Effective immediately, all expense approvals over X amount will require secondary authorization from finance. Please route future documentation accordingly. On the surface, it was nothing. Just another process change. But I saw how his jaw clenched when he read it, how his hand hovered over his mouse like he wanted to crush it. Control was slipping. Not gone, but loosening. The next morning, internal audit called him in. You can tell when someone's being investigated by the way they walk in and the way they walk out. He went in brisk, shoulders wide, talking fast to the assistant outside like he was already winning the argument. He came out 90 minutes later, moving half a step slower, tie loosened, eyes scanning the room like it might talk about him if he looked away. He stopped at my desk again. "Busy?" he asked, voice too bright. "Yes," I said. He smiled without showing his teeth. "Just to be clear, if anyone asks, yesterday's conversation was about a minor discrepancy. Nothing unusual. Agreed?" There it was, the attempt to pull me back inside his story. "Actually," I said carefully, "if anyone asks, I'll let internal audit speak for themselves." His nostrils flared. "You really think you can play games with my name?" he asked quietly. "I've been in this company a decade. You're 2 promotions in and already drowning." I turned my chair to face him fully. The office was pretending not to look, which meant everyone was listening. "I'm not playing games," I said. "I'm telling the truth. If that's a problem for you, that's useful information for audit." For a second I thought he might actually lose it right there. His hand clenched on the back of my chair. His jaw flexed. Then he let go and walked away, straight into HR. By lunch, the rumor mill had gone from a hum to a full hum of fluorescent anxiety. Someone had seen him in a closed-door meeting with HR and legal. Someone else had heard the word misconduct. His name started appearing in whispers the way it used to appear in forced laughs. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt off balance, like watching a building you always thought was solid suddenly tilt. That night, as I left the office, I saw him on the parking lot, phone pressed to his ear, pacing hard enough to wear grooves in the asphalt. His voice carried over the empty spaces. "I've given them years," he was saying. "They're not going to throw me out over some junior analyst with hurt feelings and a spreadsheet." He hadn't noticed me. For the first time since this started, I saw him without an audience, stripped of swagger, and I realized something. He truly believed this company was his. He truly believed people were his. He truly believed I was his. And people like that never see it coming when the ground stops belonging to them. The next morning, he didn't show up. We got an email instead from operations. "Your manager will be out of office for the remainder of the week. Interim reporting structure attached." His name wasn't in the org chart. Mine was, under a different supervisor. HR sent a separate invite. "Check in," the subject said. 15 minutes. The HR manager tried to do her usual warm act, but her eyes didn't quite meet mine. "We're aware of some tension," she began. "We want to ensure you're comfortable continuing in your role." I looked at her. "Are we talking about the tension where he lied to you about me falling downstairs?" I said. "Or the tension where he's under investigation for misuse of funds?" Color rose in her cheeks. I'm not at liberty to discuss. Right, I cut in. I am, with audit, which I've done. So if this is a conversation about my incident, you can update your file. I didn't fall. I was pushed. Just not physically. She stared at her notepad like it might give her a different script. Your position is not currently at risk, she said finally. His is, I replied. She didn't disagree. That night, when I walked out of the building, the air felt different. Heavier, charged, like the sky before a storm finally breaks. They thought I'd roll over. They thought I'd disappear into a resignation letter or a lateral move to somewhere quiet. They thought I was gone. I wasn't. Internal investigations don't end with fireworks. They end with calendars shifting, meetings disappearing, and silence that feels like the whole building is holding its breath. The morning everything finally broke. The office was too quiet. Not the normal early morning quiet. The kind that comes when people know something before you do. At 9:17 a.m., an email landed. From legal. Mandatory meeting. Conference room 6B. 10 minutes. Not just me. The entire team. When we walked in, 2 chairs were empty. His and the one beside him. HR sat stiffly at the table, legal beside her, and our department head at the far end. No one made small talk. No one even pretended this was normal. The department head cleared his throat. As of this morning, your manager is no longer employed by the company. No anticipation, no build-up. Just a clean, sharp sentence that sliced the air open. There was a beat of stunned silence. A few people blinked. One person whispered, "Oh my God," under their breath. I didn't say anything. I just felt the tension in my shoulders loosen by degrees I hadn't even realized were there. Legal continued, voice crisp. The investigation confirmed multiple violations, including falsified reporting, misuse of departmental funds, and improper conduct regarding employee documentation. Improper conduct. That was the sanitized version of what he'd tried to do to me. HR shifted, unable to sit still. For once, she didn't look like lemon disinfectant. She looked like someone who'd been pulled into a spotlight she never wanted. We will be undergoing a procedural review, she added, eyes skimming past everyone but mine. Our office will be implementing new oversight measures. Her tone made it clear. She wasn't untouchable. Not anymore. The meeting ended quickly. They didn't want questions. They didn't want a discussion. They wanted the cut to be clean. But as we filed out, the department head paused beside me. "Michael," he said quietly, "come see me this afternoon." There's a particular kind of silence that happens in an office when people don't know whether to congratulate you or avoid you. It followed me all morning. Some people offered careful smiles. Others looked shaken, like they were realizing all the small compromises they'd made to survive under him. At 2 p.m., I stepped into the department head's office. He closed the door. "You should know," he began, "your documentation was thorough and accurate. It was decisive." For a moment, I didn't know what to do with that. Praise wasn't something I associated with this building anymore. "We're restructuring the team," he continued. "We're moving you to the new analytics project. It's work you've already proven yourself capable of, and..." He exhaled. "We're recommending you for the lead position." It landed in my chest like a weight and a release at the same time. Not a reward, not revenge, just something that finally felt aligned with the work I'd actually done. Walking back to my desk, I noticed people watching me, not with pity, not with fear, with something closer to recognition, maybe even respect, the kind that isn't handed down, the kind earned one impossible day at a time. I stayed late that evening, not because I had to, but because I wanted the quiet. The office felt different, lighter, like someone had finally opened a window that had been sealed shut. When I left, the sky was turning gold. I walked across the parking lot, keys in hand, breathing a kind of air I hadn't tasted in months. Clean, simple, unthreatened. On the drive home, I didn't replay the humiliation. I didn't replay the confrontation. I replayed the moment in the investigation room when they'd said, "Retaliation is a serious violation. We will protect you." It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't triumphant, it was enough. When I got home, I set my bag down, loosened my tie, and sat at the kitchen table. My apartment felt different. Not because anything had changed, but because something had stopped. I wasn't waiting for the next attack. I wasn't bracing for the next lie. I wasn't carrying both sides of a job alone. Later that night, my phone buzzed, an email from HR, a formal apology for the mischaracterized incident report, a note confirming my new role, and at the bottom, a sentence that would have felt unbelievable just weeks earlier. "Thank you for your integrity throughout this process." I closed my laptop, not with triumph, not with relief, with closure. He had built a story where I was the problem. He had rehearsed it, performed it, enforced it. But in the end, the truth didn't need a spotlight. It only needed daylight. And when daylight finally hit him, he burned himself. I didn't destroy him. I didn't have to. I just stopped letting him write my part. Everything else followed.